Hi and welcome to this video on list iterations and list comprehension. Hi, I'm Raghavendra, an expert in AI, ML and data engineering. By the end of this video, you will be able to build a Python program to iterate on lists and perform some operations, demonstrate the list comprehension. So here we take a numerical list, a list comprising of numbers, and I'm going to perform some basic operation on this list, like squaring every element. So for that, I create an empty list to save the final output after squaring every element, and then I run a for loop for num in num list. I'm going to say the number, each number in the list, I raise it to the power of 2 and append it to the square list, and I repeat that exercise for every element. So I take 2, square it 3, square it 5, square it, and so on. So and then I end my for loop and I'm going to print that list. So let's execute it. So here you go. So you're going to use a for loop to square every element of the list. Instead of writing an explicit for loop, there is a much simpler and a comprehensive way of doing this. It's called as comprehensive for or list comprehensions. So what I do is, within a square bracket, I'm going to write this entire piece of code of what I'm performing. I'm performing some action on a for loop, and I put that inside a square bracket and I assign it to a list, that is square list. So what I do is I'm going to specify the iteration for num in num list, and I specify the operation to be specified in this case as num star star 2, where I am raising every number in the list to 2. And after it does this operation, it is also going to append that implicitly into this list, whatever we have supplied here. So here within square bracket, we have the action to be performed on every element, followed by the for loop iteration. And in fact, there is as well an optional filter condition, which we do not have in this case. So I'm going to print the final list and let's see the output. It's exactly the same as before. So we have just had one line of code, in fact 2 lines, including the print statement, where we did the same task of iterating a for loop in a comprehensive way, and we are squaring every element. Let's take another example here. I take a list and I take an empty list to save the final list after performing an operation. Here I am multiplying every even number by 2 and odd number by 3. I'm applying an operation on every element. If it's even, I have a specific operation performed, that is multiplied by 2. If it is odd, I have another set of operation, I'm multiplying it by 3. And this updated list, I save it in list 1. So I take an empty list and I keep appending these new elements into this list. So I iterate, pick up every element one by one, and then if it is divisible by 2, I multiply that number by 2 and append it to list 1, else I'm going to multiply it by 3 and append it to list 1. And here is the output. Even numbers are multiplied by 2 and odd numbers are multiplied by 3. Instead, you can do that in a simple single line using list comprehensions. So here is the code. Within the square bracket, I specify first the operations to be performed, that is number multiplied by 2 if the number is divisible by 2, that is number mod 2 equal to 0, else number multiplied by 3 if it's an odd number. Right? And I specify the for loop iteration for num in list. And I don't need to append explicitly, I just assign it to a new list, that is list 1, and I'm printing it. Isn't it easy? Just the simple and the more elegant way of performing iterations on lists. So let me execute it. Again, you see the same output where every even number is multiplied by 2, odd numbers are multiplied by 3. Done. Let's proceed to another example where we are again using an explicit for, where we are going to multiply every even number by 2. So here the action or the operation which we are applying is multiplying every even number, and the filter condition which we are specifying is we want to filter out only the even numbers here. So I take a list. This is my input list. I start with an empty list, begin the iteration, having a if condition over here where I check if the number is even. If so, I am only picking those elements, multiplying it by 2 and appending that result to list 1. So let me execute this. Here you go. You are only filtering out even numbers and multiplying it by 2. But you're not applying this operation of multiplying it by 2 on all the elements. So for that, you need to specify a filter condition. So we had a multi-line code using an explicit for. Let's do this using list comprehensions. So within the square bracket, I specify the operation to be applied, followed by the iteration for num in list, and followed by the filter condition. So for every number in the list, input list, what we have taken, I'm going to filter out only those elements which satisfy this condition. So I can specify any condition over here, and I have specified a condition if num mod 2 equal to 0, that is numbers which are divisible by 2. And for those numbers, I'm applying an operation, that is I'm multiplying it by 2. Right? And each number, as and when I filter out, as and when I apply this operation, it gets appended into this list implicitly. You don't need to explicitly use append over there. Let me execute this. Again, all even numbers are filtered out and they are multiplied by 2. Let's see what happens in this code here. I have an action here. I'm just picking an element. I'm picking those elements, not performing any complicated operation. For every element in X, I have a filter condition here. I have a complex filter condition here, not a simple one, because I have two conditions combined using and that is element, if that element of the list is divisible by 2 and if the element is divisible by 5, both the conditions, if the element satisfy, I'm just picking up that element. So I'm not just performing any other operation. I'm just picking up elements which are divisible by 2 and 5. I'm just filtering out and I'm just printing it on the screen. Here you go. That is elements divisible by 10. I have 10 and 20 being filtered out. Then what am I doing? I am iterating for every element in X. If the element is divisible by 2, I am taking a cube. So this is the operation which I am applying. Operation can be as simple as just picking those elements and assigning to a list or displaying on the screen, or as complicated as performing some operation like multiplying it by some number or raising it to a power of some number and so on, or dividing it by something and so on. So all those include some kind of operations which we perform on numerical values. Here in this case, I'm taking a cube of every element which we are iterating. Yep. So numbers divisible by 2, that is 2 and 16 are filtered out, and I take a cube of 2 and cube of 16, and these are the values which forms a list. So here is another one. So I'm going to iterate for element in X. If that element is divisible by 5, I'm going to pick that up and I'm just going to print it out. That's 5 gets filtered out from the list. So here are the key takeaways from this video. Lists can be iterated using for loops, that is explicit for loops. Comprehensive lists or comprehensive for loops offers a simplified notation to iterate on lists. List comprehensions allows us to filter the elements of the list as well as apply some operations on lists. Thank you.